Hey, and welcome to another issue or another edition of Movie Soundscapes. I'm James Welch, and today I'm going to review or talk about John Debney's soundtrack for the most recent version of Walt Disney's The Jungle Book. Now, this is the second, I believe it's the second live action attempt by Disney to film a version of Rudyard Kipling's famous novel. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I haven't even seen the previous one from the 90s, which had Jason Scott Lee and was directed by Stephen Sommers. So I can't even begin to compare it to that film, for example. However, as far as I can tell, unlike that film, this version, directed by Iron Man 1 and 2's director Jon Favreau, is more stringently a live action adaptation of their own animated film, the classic animated film from the 60s. That in itself brings a bit of baggage with it and a few problems that I think the film never really settles with, but that also actually comes through on the score by John Debney. Now, John Debney has been around for a long time now. Scored countless films, has done additional music for a lot of films that you wouldn't even necessarily know about. But as I say, he's been working in Hollywood for a long time, and yet he's never really got the recognition that a lot of other film composers have received. And I don't want to sound cruel or unkind, but I can kind of understand a little bit why. Being into film soundtracks heavily and scores, I'm always, when I go and see a film, trying to listen to the score or trying to be aware of the score and what it's doing. So even if, on occasions, if I become a fan of a composer, I will go and see a film purely if that composer is scoring. John Debney's never been in that bracket, and one of the reasons for that is, I'll be totally honest with you, his scores have never really left a lasting impression on me. They're very serviceable, I think, and they work well enough in context of the film. But are they that memorable? And I'm not too sure they are. That might be a bit harsh on my part, and maybe I do need to revisit some of those films or listen to some of those soundtracks and make more of a not educated point of view, but a fairer critique, probably. But talking about The Jungle Book anyway, I really enjoyed the film. Although, having thought about it a bit more since seeing the film at the cinema, and obviously in the cold light of day, you often have things that come to your mind and think, well, maybe it wasn't that great, and this could have been changed and that could have been different. Certainly, I enjoyed the experience of watching it. Visually, it's an amazing film, and John Debney's score goes a long way into attributing to the feel and scope of the film. However, the one thing in the film that I think actually hinders it more than anything is the reliance or the duty that it has to stick or reference Disney's animated film. On one page, Jon Favreau's very much trying to move the film away from it, and it's a lot darker than obviously the animated film. Some would say a lot scarier as well, and that's fine. And I haven't even read Kipling's book, so I can't comment on the references and how close it is to that. But from what I've read on reports, it is actually, it does take a lot from it does both of taking a lot from Kipling's book, but also taking a lot of liberties with it and adding a lot of things. There's the whole background to Shere Khan's sort of motivation as to hatred of men is I believe a purely fabricated invention by the script for this film, just for example. But what this film sort of is tied by is the suddenly you'll have the bare necessities song come in. Suddenly you'll have the the famous King of the Swingers moment with Christopher Walken playing King Louis. And it doesn't necessarily help the film. And the reason for that is, I got the feeling anyway, that the director was mixed up in his head as to, or whether he was duty bound by the studio as well to, you need to put a bit of the animated film in here, you need to put references to this, to that and that. And somehow the film feels a little bit forced in the way it's they're trying to put it together. Having said that, there is a lot to enjoy in the film. As I say, visually it's incredible. The voice performances are mostly very good, and it's a really entertaining movie, and I would recommend it. The score itself, I'm kind of split about. I've listened to the score intently on its own, and even sort of taken notes about it. And on the one hand, it does an excellent job of trying to capture the spirit of the jungle, the scope of the jungle, the themes for Mowgli and Bagheera and obviously Shere Khan. And I have to give kudos for Debney in trying to get those themes in there. And there's a scene, for example, where Mowgli sees the man village, and Debney's music during that point is very reflective. It's sort of really, because there's not any dialogue in that scene really, so the music has to do everything. And to accompany the actor's performance, Debney does a very good job of painting some reflection in there, and that Mowgli, this is kind of who I am really, but I've been brought up in the wild and I don't really fit with the man village thing. And man is often seen, certainly with the whole red flower aspect, I think it's called red flower, yeah, that is actually basically man's sort of fire, and that they can set fire to the jungle, and for whatever reason, whether it's by accident or not. And that reverts back to what happened to Shere Khan as well, when he got scarred and burnt, or scarred on his face, I think it was. And there's little bits like that where Debney does pull the stops out and does a good job. The soundtrack itself, available, is like over an hour long. But like a lot of soundtracks that are that long, Debney still misses a trick. To me, a film like this, and be it animated or live action, relies on really strong recurring themes. And I know I talk about themes quite a lot, but in this kind of film, I think it's paramount that it has to work. Just for example, recently I've been listening to Bruce Broughton's brilliant score to The Rescuers Down Under that's recently been re-released, and it's a wonderful example of how to do that. Debney, gets the whole. It opens it with a Disney fanfare, and then the score, and then does a little medley of sort of hinting at the bare necessities, and then you're straight into a chase sequence, which kind of works. But then during the film, there's no strong themes as such, apart from that bare necessities is referenced here and there. The song that Kaa, the snake, has, Trust in Me, again, that's referenced every now and then. But they feel like they're references that are coming because of the duty that is there to reference the old Disney film. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're themes that Debney's got his heart and soul in, and that he's really concentrating on trying to create themes for, or new themes, or really, I mean, if you're going to use the bare necessities theme a lot, really attribute it to the character of Baloo, but it gets lost somewhere. It doesn't quite flow. It doesn't quite work. And I can't say I didn't enjoy the score. There's certain aspects, certain tracks. I've taken some notes, so I'll try to remember the Water Truce track, which basically explains the sequence where the law of the jungle basically is that there's a truce around where the water, where where the animals go to drink, basically. And there's a truce there that all the animals have to be, no, Shere Khan can't attack anyone, or there's, that's what the truce is for. And there's a nice theme there. It's nice, and it gets the peaceful nature of that truce and the expansiveness of the jungle that Debney tries to grab hold of. There's other sequences, the whole sequences here and there that do impress, but the particularly one called the Cold Lair Chase, which basically is them escaping from King Louis's temple. It's a tribal action piece. There's a lot of tribal themes or use of for the action scenes in the film. Any action scenes, there's a lot of tribal drums in there, and it works well enough in the film. But the same thing that happened from what I can remember in scores for some of the other sort of films I've heard of, scores of John Debney's, is that nothing stands out in particular, and you listen to it and you think, yeah, this is reasonably okay. But the test for me for any score really is: would you go back to it? Would you keep going back to it? Would you listen to it again? Would you do that? Now, for me, I've tried to listen to Jungle Book a few times in preparation for this review, and I've thought to myself, yeah, this is okay, but I can't see myself going back to it too much after reviewing this. And I'd like to hear from any John Debney fans. Please do post below and say if you think I'm completely wrong, because by all, that's fine. And I'd like to see if you completely disagree and think he is strong with themes, or does that matter? Is it really just servicing the film? Doesn't matter about building a lot of themes. I know he's going to score the new Ice Age film that's coming out soon, taking over from John Powell. Now that's a good example, because John Powell for me is one of the best composers around for that thematic type of animated score. Obviously, one of the benchmarks, How to Train Your Dragon 2, that everyone seems to love, and I think, to be honest, with very good reason. But overall, then, there's some good music in the Jungle Book. There's a Shere Khan's war cry or war theme at the end that's very exciting. But the tracks are either not long enough, or they don't feel the way they've been put together on the album don't interlock enough. Don't feel like there's enough structure there. And again, that can be a problem with film music in general. But other composers can find a way around that and find it. The themes there to make it an interesting experience, but that's not necessarily the case here. So overall, the film I enjoyed, with some reservations, and that kind of sums up the score as well. So maybe a 6 out of 10 for me, and I will endeavour to go back and listen to some Debney. Actually, please do recommend that for me to change my mind about John Debney. Please give me a score to listen to. Give me a film that he's scored. Say what is the best way to really appreciate him, and I'll happily go and listen to it. I really will. But thanks for listening. Hope that was entertaining. Let me know your thoughts on the Jungle Book or John Debney in general, and I'll see you again soon. Until next time, take care.